The cost of living crisis is giving criminals a licence to shoplift, according to the boss of John Lewis and Waitrose, after professional thefts rose by more than a quarter on our high streets last year.
It's kind of moved on to an industrial scale, really. John Lewis have been forced to bring in a lot of new measures to tackle this huge rise in thieves. We'll be talking to their boss, Dame Sharon White, in just a moment. But first, here's Guy Guptel with some of the details on this.
Well, Dame Sharon White joins us now. It's a precious thing in many people's hearts. It seems to spread, doesn't it, like some other big stores too, to a sort of a national consciousness. Do you feel you have the confidence of those you oversee in the workforce and the customers coming through your doors?
Yeah, hugely. As you say, I mean, the partnership is the most extraordinary business. It's the biggest employee-owned business in the UK, one of the biggest in the world. And that sense of, almost a sense of sort of you own the business, whether you shop with us or whether you work with us, I think is huge. If you look at trust in Waitrose, trust in John Lewis, we're still two of the strongest brands in the country, and that's something I feel it's a huge privilege, and it's also a huge responsibility.
But having a tough time, though, an annual loss of 234 million posted just a few months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I always often think that sort of, you know, if anybody had a crystal ball in 2020 and sort of looked ahead and saw, you know, 2 years of a pandemic and a cost of living crunch, I mean, we're here, we're growing customer numbers, trust in the brand is huge, but inevitably with, you know, the market's never been as competitive, and inflation hit both John Lewis and Waitrose like a tsunami over the last year. But we're adapting, we're adjusting, we're ensuring that we've got great quality, but also affordability, because everybody's feeling the pinch at the moment.
The big change that we're all facing in established industries, whether it's yours, whether it's in television, is the internet. It's the net. I mean, for us, viewing figures across the board go down and down and down and down because people are streaming, they're watching on their phones, they're not watching television like they used to, and people aren't shopping the way they used to. They're shopping online. My wife, for example, now shops almost exclusively online. And the kind of stuff that she might once, we would have got in the car and gone to our John Lewis, which is 2 or 3 miles up the road in a shopping centre, she's now ordering that stuff not necessarily from John Lewis, but from other sources. That's your big threat, isn't it?
I mean, it's been a huge shift. So before the pandemic, 40% of John Lewis purchases were online. They're now about 55, 60%.
Wow.
So it's a big...
And rising.
And it's sort of stabilised around 55%. But what's interesting we saw in the last year, actually the people are really enjoying going back into...
The shopping experience.
They're going back into the shopping experience. So they want both. They want the sort of the convenience of great click and collect. You can pick up John Lewis from your local Waitrose store. But actually, if you're refurbishing your home, or we've got lots of mothers, you know, after their first baby, their body shapes have changed, and they'd love a personal styling appointment from...
So why are the profits down, then? Is it purely the cost of living crisis, and is that affecting what you're doing in store? Because I notice you're doing a sort of a meal deal, which is not something we'd normally associate with John Lewis and Waitrose, is it?
It's a few things. If you look at the last year, actually, there were some very bright spots for us. So we're a £12.5 billion business. Sales were high. Customer numbers grew both in Waitrose and John Lewis, which is an amazing thing given everybody's feeling the pinch. The issue for us, and it's partly because we're a very different sort of business that's always invested in people, but less in process and efficiency, is cost. And so we are really trying to ensure that we're there for our customers who are, as I say, want the great quality they've always had. So the meal deal, which is coming in...
How do you do that? How do you slap the prices and keep the profit?
Yeah, so we also have to be a bit more efficient. So Waitrose, you know, if you go into your local Waitrose tomorrow, it'll be the first time you can get a great meal deal for £5, but we're also making sure the sustainability and ethics are there. But we've also got to be more efficient. So we're simplifying some of the ways we, you know, do some of our arcane processes in stores. So we're more efficient to convert more of those sales into profit, but we're also more mindful of the cost of living pressures for our
You're having to
customers.
tackle, along with high street stores generally, but you're having to tackle an enormous rise in organised, gang-organised theft. We're not talking about casual shoplifting here. We're talking about sort of blitzing that's going on. What do you think is the real reason behind that? Is it the cost of living crisis? Is it driven by that? Or is it driven by the fact, and this has been a complaint which has been lodged very firmly in the Home Secretary's ear and with chiefs of police, that basically shoplifting isn't treated seriously as a crime anymore? It's simply disregarded by the police.
Yeah, it's a combination. It's interesting. I was in our store in Glasgow at the end of June, visiting partners and customers, and I saw a gang of teenage boys. And I did sort of instinctively started sort of following them around before then, you know, drafting one of our security guys. Mm-hmm. They were deterred. They then went to our John Lewis Edinburgh store and...
Same gang?
Same gang the next day and stole from our beauty department. They were then caught. And the interesting thing in Scotland is that the police were there. And it's partly because the legislation in Scotland's different. So if you're a shop worker and you're abused or attacked, there is a specific law which means it's a specific offence.
So legislation could do more.
So legislation could do more, and of course the police are stretched, but it's not a victimless crime.
You're offering the police free coffee, aren't you?
Yeah. So
is it in Waitrose stores?
In Waitrose and John Lewis.
What? So they park their police cars outside the store? Yeah.
So if you may already get free coffee if you're a Waitrose or John Lewis customer, but we're also saying to the police, actually do come in. We're trying to encourage great community relations with our local police forces. So come in, grab a latte, come and talk to our branch manager, come and talk to our partners. And
leave the car out the front door.
Leave the car at the front door.
Suella Braverman, our Home Secretary, was on our programme yesterday, and she said she was issuing a challenge to police to tackle low-level crime. It's not low-level if you're the victim of it, but things like car theft, burglary and indeed shoplifting. Did you take comfort in that strategy, that promise for her, or what more could she do to help you?
So, I mean, I liked her... She said yesterday that every crime matters, and I think that's absolutely the case. I wrote, actually, to the Home Secretary just before, in July, and also wrote to Sir Mark Rowley, got a reply from the Chief of the Met Police. And I think there is a growing recognition over recent months that these aren't trivial crimes, because either those costs, you know, if you're suffering theft, those costs go somewhere. They go back to
Someone's got to pay for
the legislation that you detailed in Scotland. Would you like that here?
Yes, so I think if the legislation that we have in Scotland, where it is an offence to abuse or attack a shop worker, one of our partners, it doesn't matter where you are in retail, I think having that replicated in the Westminster legislation, I think, would be a massive plus.
So do you think, then, if a shoplifting gang going in mob-handed and steaming through a store like yours, if they knew that if they were arrested and caught, they'd probably end up doing some jail time, do you think that would actually help solve the problem?
I think it makes a massive difference, knowing that your local copper, your local police officer is going to be there, I think, hugely.
And take it seriously.
And take it seriously.
Very interesting, very interesting. Well, good to talk to you this morning. You're not going to reveal, are you, as we head into autumn, what the John Lewis ad's going to be this year? But
but they would shoot me. But
OK, all right.
It will be fantastic, that's all I can say.
Just one quick question. Are you enjoying it?
I am. It has been...
Because you've got so many headaches to kind of administer.
Yeah, you've had a difficult period, haven't you, for this 4 years?
But it's also an enormous privilege. I always feel it's... when we spoke at the outset, it's like running a national institution. It feels more akin to almost running a BBC or an NHS.
I bet it does.
Everybody loves the business. They can get frustrated, but they're frustrated because they care about our success, and that's an enormously privileged position to be in.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.